My name is John Carle, and I've written the English Gym series. It's independently, it's hard to say, independently published, and it's hard to do actually, to publish it independently. So I would like to give back to the community by sharing my experience of being an independent publisher. When I first started, I got a lot of help from lots of different people, and I've been doing it for about 5 years now. So let me share my screen. All right, so I want to thank Kyoto Gelt for sponsoring this event, and I think it's a wonderful idea. Hopefully we can do this again some other place and share the materials with other people, because one of the problems that small publishers have or independent publishers have is just getting the word out, because we don't have the resources and the marketing as the bigger publishers. You know, we don't have sales reps going here and there sharing work. So I think this is a great idea and will help a lot of small-time publishers and independent authors reach a larger audience. I'm going to share a link, first of all, to my slideshow. For those of you who are interested in self-publishing, I've put a lot of resources on this slideshow, and there's probably dozens and dozens of hours of resources for you to look at. So if you wanted to get into this business, please click on that link. It'll bring you to the slideshow. And on that slideshow, there'll be a variety of resources for you to use in getting information about how to publish your materials independently. If you do have questions, I'm going to try to have about 30 minutes of my talking in the beginning. And then maybe the latter part will be open questions for you guys. So if you have any questions, get a pen and pencil, write it down, or you could put it in the chat. Probably won't check the chat as I'm doing my presentation because I can't do two things at one time. Gretchen, if there is something important in the chat, could you point that out to me? If you could just monitor that, that would be very helpful. My talk is how to publish ELT materials independently. There's my email address if you need to contact me. And I'm very happy to help people if they have any questions. And I've helped a few people publish their materials, and they've paid me with beer and donuts. So I'm pretty cheap. So I did put the link in the URL, but if you have a phone, you can just copy the QR code and you can look at it on your phone and scroll through it. But if you save it, you'll be able to come back and find all of those resources. So I encourage you to either go into the chat, copy that URL, or use your phone and get that QR code. Okay, one of the first resources is this website that I put up. It's called Publishing Guides. And since I've been doing this for about 5 years, I started with Kyoto Gelt in 2019, my first presentation on publishing independently. So thank you, Gretchen, for giving me that first opportunity, letting me in the door. And since then, I've been giving talks and presentations every year in different venues. So I thought, you know, when people come to these events, I'm only talking to, half a dozen people at a time. So I thought, why not make a website? It's kind of a hobby of mine. Make a website and I can keep the resources up there for other people. Also for myself, I'll go back because I forgot what I did or how I did something. So I'll go back to these resources. It helps me remember those things. I'm using Wix as the site. It's a free site. I'm not paying for it, so you can't really search for it. So you'd have to, like I said, save it to your home screen and then come back later to it. But if you click on the link, it'll bring you to this page here, and I've got a ton of resources. Probably today's takeaway, there are 4 things that would help people in learning how to get into this industry, or that will be kind of reference points. The first one is just an example, my series, The English Gym. We started out in, I think, 2018 or 19, and we had about 3 universities using our textbooks. And now, about 4 or 5 years later, we've worked with almost 20 different universities. So it's grown every year. Through this process, I've had a lot of missteps, but I haven't had any like big mistakes. We've always had to figure out how to go along. There's no rule book really on how to do this. So you really have to figure things out by yourself, and you have to talk to people and network and really, kind of help each other. So I've gotten a lot of help from people in the industry, and I'm hoping to help other people, do their best and get their vision make their vision a reality. So there's the example of my series. The second one are a bunch of articles in the JALT Material Writers SIG. They have dozens and dozens. They've got 2 decades worth of articles archived. If you go there, you'll see, you can scroll, I'll show you in a second. They have dozens of articles on different aspects of the industry, whether you're doing it independently or doing it through an established publisher or even a small publisher. So there's dozens of articles there. I wrote one a few years ago. There's also a video and some other things. Oh, actually, I'll go to the website now so I can show you what I'm talking about. So here's the website. You can click on the English Gym. There's a website. And like I said, we've been at about 20 universities coming up this year. So successful for a small enterprise. The archives are here. So you'd click on this link and it's open to anybody. If you're a JALT member or not JALT member, the archives are up there for anybody to look at. This is my article here in 2020. But if you look at the titles, you can find things. Here's John Speary, and all different perspectives on this. So there's a wealth of knowledge. Like I said, 2 decades worth of material writers articles on this particular subject. Okay, this is a link directly to my article a couple of years ago. Where is it here? Yeah, so I do have a lot of links and I kind of take you through the process of writing my first book. And it's kind of the journey of how I came up with the first idea to getting the final product into the classroom. So if you want to read the article, it's on the archives as well. I made a video for the National JALT Conference 2 years ago because of the pandemic. We didn't have a face-to-face conference. So they said, make videos. I said, I never made a video, but I tried my luck at it and came up with this. So the full video is about 22 minutes, and it takes you through the whole process, A to Z, how to get your book published. So I can't go through everything in this talk today. So if you need to get some more information, please watch those videos. They are all up on the web. And let me just go back to Kyoto JALT for 1 second. This was my first poster, and I presented this at Kyoto JALT in 2019. Maybe Gretchen remembers that. So this was my first step into the door for presentations. And I've used that as a launching pad, and I put it on the website. And it's kind of like reminders of, what aspects you need to think about if you're going to do this whole process independently. Okay, so the poster's up there. You can print it out and put it on your wall if you want to. If you need to contact me, there's contact information there. And last year, we were still online, right? So last year, I wanted to change perspectives a little bit and compare working with an established publisher versus working independently, the pros and cons of both. So I did a survey, and I got responses from about 20 different authors. And you can look at the questions, but probably the most important thing are the results and the comments from these various authors, what their opinions on these various questions. So you get 20 different perspectives, and you can scroll through these. These are, again, talks about economics, financials, sales quotas, and a lot of the ins and outs of working with designers, printers, distributors, all kinds of things. So again, it's another resource for people to look at. And you have my takeaway here about the pros and cons of both of these industries. Okay, so that's those are dozens and dozens of hours of resources that I won't be able to talk about today. But if you're interested, you can go there and check out that website. Okay, so today I'm going to talk maybe 15, 20 minutes more about what I want to talk about. But the question is, what do you want to know? The members in this audience, I'm not sure how many people are here, or if people are interested in writing their own materials, or if they're just supporting me, my friends. But if you do have questions, I would really like you to ask me those questions. So I want it to be an exchange of information. So I'll be counting on you to thinking of some questions for me. I don't consider myself an expert, but I do consider myself someone who has gone through the process and is continuing to go through the process, and I'm learning every day. So if you have some questions, please do ask me. And I think for this particular field, creating materials for a market in Japan, specifically for me, it's a university level. There are about 12 areas of concern, and you can ask me about any of these and I'll probably have an answer. Hopefully it'll be a correct answer or accurate answer. But I found that everyone who's in this industry has certain, the situations are different. They're unique for everybody. And there's no one way of doing things. There are several ways of doing things. I think probably the most important part is to be passionate about what you're doing, to believe in what you're doing, and to find a way somehow to get to the finish line. And I guess that's in any industry, but you really have to have those two personal characteristics to get through the process. These 12 aspects, the writing process, software, teamwork, audio, websites, digital books, ISBN, images, printing, sales, distribution, and taxes, which I just did last week. That's fun. If you have questions about any of these topics, I have some experience in all of these areas. So please write them down. You can put them in the chat and we'll try to get to them later, or we'll open up the mics and you can just raise your hand and we'll take some open questions. But before we get to that, in about 15 minutes, I want to talk about some recent developments that I've been thinking about just this past month. Sometimes when you're entering a new area, you don't know what question to ask, right? You don't have the experience. So if you don't have the experience, you don't know what the question should be. So I want to share with you three things that you may not know what to ask, but I'm going to tell you, even though you may not know, you should ask. And these are just things that have been happening recently in this March, the past year, actually. So the first thing is voice actors. And for all of my textbooks, I have 2 textbooks now and 2 digital workbooks. I wanted to have an audio component. And for a lot of independent publishers, they don't have an audio component, or they have a voice that sounds like a robot, or or they don't have it at all. And I'm going to tell you, it's possible and feasible, and it can be done. So I'll tell you what I did for my second book. The second book is written, I have a lot of humor and drama in these audio recordings, because as a teacher in Japan at university, we do a lot of TOEIC, TOEFL, IELTS, all those kinds of testing activities, right? Those audio recordings are so boring, right? They just put me to sleep. I can't believe the students have to take a whole year of TOEIC, right? Because the listening component, and I understand why they can't, they don't want it to be colorful. But for my classes, that's not what I'm looking for. So when I made my audio materials, I wanted to have like an old-time radio drama, like a Korean soap opera, something really melodramatic or funny. So that was my vision for these particular components. And I needed to get voice actors to do this. And I couldn't get, it was difficult to get people into a studio together. First, you got to rent the studio. COVID, pandemic, this was like in August and September. So some people have been getting the shots and the vaccines, others not. It was just a mess. So I tried to get some people together. We did one recording. It failed miserably. So all my money went into the garbage. But I did have a plan B, and that was to go to freelancers. So I use a network, freelance network called Fiverr, and I found a bunch of voice actors all over the world. So I got one in Tokyo, this guy named Sora. I wanted to have some Japanese speakers of English, so I got Sora, and I got some people in North America. I got some people in Germany. And what I did was I recorded the script myself, and I sent that script, or the audio recording, to the voice actors so that they could see exactly how I wanted the voice inflection, etc. But since they were in different studios, I had to get like Sora in Tokyo to record one part of the dialogue, and then Mike in New Jersey do another part. And then I got a sound engineer to put those together into a dialogue. And when you listen to it, I'll play it for you, you won't notice that they're in different studios in different parts of the world. So now I know I can do any kind of recording, drama, dialogue that I want to with people, available all over the world, and make something that sounds, that's going to engage the students. So that's my goal, is I want to engage the students. So I'll play a little bit of this clip, and I hope I've checked the sound. So Gretchen, if the sound sounds horrible, let me know. This textbook has 20 units. I'm going to do this one with sharing an apartment, unit 8. So there's going to be a buzzer. Please be careful, like a theater buzzer. It's going to shock you. Please be careful. There's a bit of a narration, and then the dialogue will start. So I'll play this now.
Unit 8, Sharing an Apartment. Situation. 2 university students, Joe and Paul, have been sharing an apartment for a month. Joe has just come home after classes. Paul is sitting on the sofa, eating pizza and watching TV.
Hey, Joe, what's happening?
Hey, Paul. Well, I think I failed my economics test. It was really hard, and I didn't study enough.
Don't worry about it. Economics is easy. You gotta go with your gut. If it feels right, do it. Just like the stock market.
What do you know about the stock market? You work at a supermarket.
Someday, Joe, I'm gonna be rich. Hey.
Okay, I'm going to go down to the very end here. I don't want to take up too much time.
What are you talking about?
What am I talking about? I'm talking about your socks on the sofa under the cushions. And I'm talking about your underwear in the bathroom on the floor. And I'm talking about the mold growing from all of your soda bottles that you didn't finish drinking. It's gross, man. You live like a pig.
Pig? Who's the pig? You are eating my pizza.
It's really good.
Hey, stop eating my pizza.
Okay, so I don't know if that's going to be funny for the students. I hope so, but I wanted to get them engaged in this topic of sharing an apartment, which is something that might be of interest to our students. But anyway, I didn't want those boring vanilla, Bob and Mary, at the supermarket, discussing the price of cucumbers. I wanted something funny. So that's my vision. And I was able to use freelancers and a sound engineer who was a friend of mine, put those all together into something that sounds like they were having a conversation. You wouldn't know that, one was in this part of the world, one was in another part of the world. So I think with technology and all of the designers and artists, voice actors out there, independent people can put this together by themselves and create a product that is in line with their vision. Okay, so that was one thing, and I was very happy. We got 20 dialogues. It's all done and it's uploaded, so I'm thrilled about that. Okay, the second thing is a digital workbook. Recently, we just put out 2 digital workbooks. One of them is on the market now. The other one for the book 2 is a beta testing. This is something that I've wanted to do for like 5 years. And I talked to different IT companies and tech people, and I couldn't find a platform that I could work with that was capable of putting all of these different activities for students to do at home. And then through Jalt, I met, I don't want to sound like an advertising guy, but I met Paul Rain. I don't know if Paul Rain's here, probably not, but he's the CEO of Zengengo, which last year was called Teacher Tools. And I saw this platform and I was like, wow, this is great. And it's designed for teachers to make activities for their students. It's really fantastic. A great platform. Students don't need any onboarding or anything like that. They just do the activities and teachers make all this content. And I saw this and I said, that's really good. And some of my teachers were using it and they asked me, John, can you check this out? So I did, and they kept pushing me, and I didn't really want to do it till the summer, but I got pushed into it. So I contacted Paul Rain, and I said, I love your platform, but let's see if we can reverse the business model. Instead of teachers paying for a subscription, which is like Ichiman or more, Ichiman gosen yen a year, and teachers like free, right? Teachers like activities that are free. So I talked to him and I said, can we reverse this model and have like a publisher's platform? And he said, he talked to his teammate, you know, he's got a whole team over there. And we came up with this, the idea, the result was yes. It took about 6 months, but so we negotiated. And so now there's a small, I think I'm the first person to bring this to market with him. So nobody really knows about this. It's a way for independent publisher to create this online content with this fantastic platform. So now I talked to another guy, I think he's here, Paul Goldberg from X Reading. I talked to him about, you know, his online platform. He gave me, he's a nice guy, very generous with his advice. And I talked about how do you get your students on board? And there's a variety of ways, but one way is using scratch cards, you know, where students get like a card like this. They've got a code on there, they scratch it off, and that's how they get access to this. So for my textbooks or these digital workbooks, I'm not getting whole institutes joining in. I'm getting an individual teacher with their classes. So we can't like upload a whole, you know, roster of students. So each student has to get on board by themselves. So we came up with the idea of using scratch cards with unique codes on there. And for me, I know some teachers love tech and some teachers don't like tech. They just want to do chalk and talk, which is great. That's fine. So I didn't want to have a digital workbook in every book, like they are forced to use it. It's an option. And right now, about half of the teachers are, you know, they said, oh, this looks great. So they've gotten on board, and we're going to launch it in, well, this April, actually. So I'll just show you a little bit about what you can do on, make a digital workbook. Like you can make it. I made it, you can make it. This is just a sample one. They've got a bunch of different activities, and these are just kind of basic ones that you'd find in typical online workbooks. But here's the killer one. Here's the one that really sold me, was this speaking activity. This one is fantastic. I've even gotten compliments from my students when we were beta testing this one. Students record their responses to these 5 questions here, and then they type in a transcript, and the computer will look at that transcript. They'll mark grammar, spelling mistakes, and they'll highlight those for the students. So they get immediate feedback, and it gives you a score based on word count. So, you know, based on their effort. And I think this is a fantastic tool, and I absolutely love it. And the other thing is, like, when you're trying to design these things, you want to make sure that it's going to look good on how students are accessing this material. So students will access this on their mobile devices. So you can see it looks fine, and they're going to click on one of these, and it's going to be beautiful on their phone. So when you're doing these things, it's really nice. You have to think about how they're going to be using it from a student's perspective or a teacher's perspective. Okay, so that's the digital workbook. That was all this high-tech stuff. You got to be good with tech, I think, but I don't know how to code, but this IT company, they know how to code. So I can just make the materials. It comes out to this product that can be marketed. Okay, the last thing is that I want to talk about is going retro, faxes. If you are doing the distribution yourself, you're going to be dealing with bookstores. The 2 major bookstores that we deal with, like I said, we've dealt with about 20 universities. The big ones are Kinokuniya and Maruzen that are connected to universities. There's a lot of mom and pop shops as well. There's co-ops, Seikyo, and there's also large distributors like a Tohan, which will try to get in between the publisher and the bookstore. So there's a lot of different aspects to that. But one thing that I did find out, which is you live in Japan, and if you're doing business in Japan, sometimes about a third of these or more, they do business by fax. So if you don't have a fax machine, you got to go get a fax machine or get an online fax machine. And I came to Japan in 98. This is like just before, the internet really exploded. There was no iPhones or anything like that, right? And I bought a telephone with a fax and a hand scanner. It was really high tech. And I've had that for about 30, from 98. From 98, I had the same phone. It got yellow, it got gray, right? And then I don't get many faxes, but now that I'm doing this business, I get faxes. I'm like, why are they sending faxes? It's crazy. So in March, I think I got an announcement on my phone that my ribbon was running out. I had this for like 25 years. The ink ribbon was running out. So I go to change the ribbon. It's really clunky and the inside is all yellowed and the plastic is brittle from the sun. And I broke off a couple pieces of the plastic and I was like, well, I just put the ink back in there, new ink, it seemed to fit. And then a couple days later, we're starting to get our faxes now from these businesses because it's March. That's when they order the books. And I hear this crazy noise. It's crinkling. It sounds awful. It's not the usual whirring and buzzing of a fax. It's crunchy. And then the fax paper starts coming out and the ribbon comes out with it. So like all its guts were coming out. I was like, oh my God, this fax is, it's dying on me. And the paper, the ink was like all squashed, like half the size. So I had to squint to look at it. And I thought, well, my fax is dying. It's, halfway broken. So I open it up and then there's a heating element, like a bar. And that heating element is supposed to lay between the paper and the ink film and transfer the image onto that. And that fell off because this is like 25 years old. So that fell off. And then I kind of put it all back together, put a little tape on there. And then I get another fax. It's the same day, another fax, and nothing comes out. And like, oh no, I can't get my orders. So I take out the ribbon and I see it had printed it on the ribbon. And I hold it up to the light and I'm like looking at this. It's the reversed image in Japanese. So I turn it upside down and inside out and I can see my order from this university. So at that moment, I said, I got to get a new fax machine. So I go to the local store. I live out in the sticks in Nara. And I go to the guy and I found the machine that I wanted. And I said, do you have this in stock? He said, let me check. And he said, oh, it's going to take 3 to 4 weeks to get it delivered. Like 3 to 4 weeks. I need it in like an hour. So anyway, I ordered through Amazon. We got a new fax machine the other day and it works perfectly now. But I guess the point is, if you're going to be dealing with bookstores, you do need a fax machine. You can get an online one. I think you need to get a subscription and get a dedicated fax number, or just get a new fax machine. But if you're going to do this all, A to Z, this printing business, you do need a fax machine. Okay, that's my 30 minutes. And those are the 3 topics that I wanted to share with you that you probably didn't have questions for, but I wanted to share those with you. All right. So these are the topics. Maybe if you have questions, we can talk about this, and I can just open it up to anybody and see if you guys have any questions. So I think that's the end of it. Oh, in the afternoon session, we will have this, I guess, I don't know what we're having, breakout rooms. If you want to talk to me about the English Gym series, please come. We will give free samples to anybody who wants one. So just come visit me in there and we can talk. Okay, so I'm going to open it up. If you do have a question, I see there are 3 things in the chat right now. If you don't mind turning on your mic. And in the comments says, in Japan, a fax is a legal document. I'm not sure about email being considered a legal document. Yeah, I'm not sure why companies do send faxes. And like I said, more than a third of the companies that we deal with send faxes. I don't know why. It might be a legal issue, but I think email is a lot easier to deal with. And most companies use email. Other companies will call you. So you do need someone who can speak Japanese fluently and write fluently. When I get a phone call, my Japanese isn't fluent. So, but my business manager, who happens to be my wife, is fluent. So she, we are a mom and pop operation. She does most of the correspondence, and email is just a lot easier to deal with that. But like I said, you do get faxes and you do get phone calls. Okay, and there was one more, Gretchen. What was your question, Gretchen, about voice actors?
Yeah, I was wondering what company you're using, or how did you find these people?
Oh, I went to Fiverr. It's a freelancer site. It's called Fiverr.
Okay.
It's a site for freelancers. If you need graphic designers, artists, anything, financial planners, I don't know. They do have voice actors, and you can hear samples of what their voice sounds like. And I wanted to get people who, well, first of all, I wanted to get some Japanese voice actors. It was hard to find Japanese voice actors who did work in English, because obviously they're Japanese. But I wanted to have English speakers with a kind of a Japanese accent. So it was a little hard for me to find those. But a lot of the other voice actors, they did work for games, commercials, things like that. And you can talk to them and chat with them and develop a relationship. And the price scale ranges depending on what they want. So it's kind of a free for all. So you got to vet them yourself. But I used Fiverr mostly.
How much would you end up paying? Like,
some guys were really cheap, like $5, $5. Others were more expensive, like $100 for one recording.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah. So, it was just a big variety. So some people I paid $5 and some people I paid $100. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
Paul has his hand up.
Oh,
yeah.
hello, Paul.
Question related to the audio. So you said $5. I was just curious. I mean, was that $5 for 5 minutes or $5 for an hour, or?
It was $5 for maybe, I think it depends on the word count. So it was this guy Sora in Tokyo. He just kind of like did it for fun, I think. And he was a young guy, like in his early 20s, a really extroverted Japanese guy he didn't have a bad accent. It wasn't like the katakana style pronunciation, but he did have a Japanese accent, which is what I was looking for. So if you got to shop around. There, like I said, there's a huge gap in terms of quality and also price range. So you
said that. And also, I'm just curious, who managed all of the audio? Because you said you had different people recording things in different places, and you had an engineer. Did you manage all that, or you had someone else? You hired somebody to manage it?
Well, I can do a little bit of audio engineering myself, but not much. So I had a friend of mine. He's like a semi-pro, like he's a musician and he records his own work. And I've worked with him on my first book, so he knows what he's doing. Mm-hmm. So basically, I orchestrate. I was like the director. I wrote the script, or most of the scripts, and I recorded my own voice as samples for the voice actors, and I arranged all that. And then I would get the data or the files from the voice actors, and then I'd send it to my friend Ted Ostis, who's in Osaka. And if anyone needs a sound engineer, Ted has just retired from teaching, and I'm sure he'd be happy to work with anybody for sound engineering work. And he does a very good job. You can listen to the quality on my site and judge for yourself. But I worked with him for about a month, back and forth, mostly online, telling him, we added a lot of folio sounds as well, because I wanted this like an old time radio drama. So one of the units is about earthquake, because Japan, I think we should talk about earthquakes because we live in Japan. So there's an earthquake in California, and there's screaming, there's police and fire, and then there's running and buildings crashing. So he added all that folio into that. So I had Ted make sure the sounds that, it wasn't too loud, and he had to layer them. The male voice, the female voice, the folio, and we all had to put it together. But we had to work really closely with the sound engineer, who's a friend of mine in Osaka, Ted. So if anyone is interested in a sound engineer, I'm happy to recommend him.
Could you write his name in the chat for us?
Okay, he's not a JALT member. He's kind of out of the loop. So if you contact me, I will put you in contact with him. But I don't know if he wants his name out there.
Oh, you're right. Okay. Okay.
Just contact me. His name is Ted.
Okay.
The engineer, sound engineer. All right.
Let's see. We got Jeff and
yeah.
Jason. We'll take Jeff first.
Yeah, how you doing? Jeff Morrow in Kumamoto. Thank you for your presentation. Yeah, really interesting stuff. You said you were in 20 universities. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great, because I'm in like one class at my university now with my book. How long did it take you to get to that point? And how did you go about doing that? Yeah.
We've been doing it for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be honest with you. We have been, we've sent books to 20 different universities. At the moment, we're not at 20 because some teachers, they don't continue to use the book, or they're at different places. So
inspection copies or things like that you send out? Like
if I do an event, I try to give out samples to teachers. That's one way. But recently, it's hard to advertise if you're independent, right? So I do a little Facebook, but not much. But it's kind of like word of mouth because I'm independent. So I'm really happy I have this chance with Kyoto JAL to do this, because that's one of the hardest aspects. I mean, you might have a really good product. If nobody knows about it, what's the point? So that I think it might be something to think about, like independent publishers or small companies to have some kind of a presence. And my wheels were thinking, like, why don't we have like a website where we can have like a gallery of all the JAL members who have published works, whether they're independent or working at a local company, or even a big company if they wanted to. Just have a gallery out there, and then people can go there and see what's available. Like your book. I mean, it's hard to get it out there. I mean, you might have a really fantastic book. If nobody knows about it, then it's just going to sit in your living room.
You're right. Good ideas. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jeff. Jason, do you have a question? Jason Henwood.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Jason. I'm from Osaka. First of all, thanks for your presentation, Carl. It was very interesting. I enjoyed it. My question is, how did you first get involved with the distributors for your books? I'm sure that must have been quite challenging. And did that require you to sort of show that you had an audience? For example, did you have to show that some universities were interested in your product beforehand? Or, I just want to know how you first got started with your distributors.
Okay, well, when I first got started about 5 years ago, I wasn't sure how I was going to distribute the book. So I did make contact with one company called English Books Japan. I think probably most of you know them. They carry a lot of publications by independent authors, and they're a great company. You can approach them. The director of sales and marketing is a guy named Colin Bethel, very nice guy, and they will probably offer you a standard package, which is, I think it's 50% or 60% goes to them maybe the first year, and you get 50%. I think that's the standard package, but you'd have to negotiate with them. It is a business deal. I ended up not going with them, but I always, if I get, I might contact them again, because I think they do play a valuable role in getting your books to the marketplace, and they take care of all the faxes and the business correspondent and everything like that. But what my wife and I decided to do is we would be the distributors ourselves. So that you need certain skills to do, because it's a business end, and so we don't go through a distributor ourselves. We do the distributing. And because it's a seasonal business, it's kind of hard to do, because you're only doing it like in March, mostly, a little bit of April, March, and that's it. That's the busy season. So right now my house is full of books, and we're getting ready to ship them out tomorrow. So I'm going to load up the van and ship out a lot of books tomorrow. So we do the distribution ourselves. And you do need to have, when they call you up for the book orders, usually the companies, they'll ask for an estimate, and they'll ask for the percentage, how much you're going to sell it as at a wholesale price, because you're not selling it at the retail price, right? And from my experience, the bookstores, if you're selling directly to the bookstores, they're going to take 20 to 25% off of the retail price, 20, 25%. So you're not getting 100%, of the price of the book, but you are getting, 75 to 80. Of course, you have your cost of production, which can be high depending on the volume that you're printing and where you're printing. But yeah, we do the distribution ourselves. If you want to know a little bit more about it, you can contact me and I can help you out. But yeah, distribution, you need Japanese skills and you need time and someone to man the phones.
Okay,
And
thank you
space for
very
your
much.
books.
Yeah. What's that?
And space for your books.
Yeah, you need space for your book. That is a concern. I mean, Paul, you're all online, so you don't need space for your books. You're lucky.
Yeah. But I know people who've been in your position. I guess once they get more products out, it just, they couldn't do it themselves. When you have one or two books, it's manageable. But like with Marcos Benavides, when he started having so many different graded readers and having to deal with different orders of different amounts, I think he realized it was beyond what one person could do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I that's a concern of mine now, because we're going to be selling out our stock and maybe a little bit more than what we have right now. So I might have to do an order earlier than I expected, which is a good problem to have because I'm selling more books than I thought I was going to sell. But if like the online, these cards, which Paul Goldberg, you helped me with some of your advice on making these and getting the scratch right. I got it right, Paul.
Good.
And these are a lot smaller than a textbook, very thin. So they don't take up much space, but those are online books. And, but I think it's, it's another market area is the online digital platforms, like Paul's platform, Paul Goldberg's X Reading. Let me go up to Rob. Rob Warren, he says he used Upwork for his freelancers. Yeah, I've looked at Upwork. Rob, are you there?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've looked at Upwork. It's a kind of a slightly different style as a Fiverr. I think Upwork, you send in a proposal and then you get bids on your proposal. And for Fiverr, I found that you just find the artist that you like and you contact them directly and see if they can do it. But I'm not sure. Well, Rob, how have you used Upwork?
Lots of different ways. Translation is one. Getting people to do art is another one. I've been using it for about 8 or 9 years now.
Yeah, I think the freelancers are fantastic, especially for art and design work. They can make your logos, they can do the illustrations, really fantastic. And again, the price range is up and down all over the place. So you do get what you pay for, but you have to vet them yourself. Okay, Lindsay, you have a question. She says it's noisy in here. Can I ask if John printed when is print the? Okay, John printed his first book through a private printing company. How many did he print? What was that a personal investment? So our first print run, we printed 1,000 copies of the book, and it's a pretty thick book. Okay, it's 144 pages. A4 size. It's a big book, full color. I'll show you the color. It's nice. So color is expensive for printing. Color is very expensive for printing. But that's what I wanted. So I paid for it. And I think we went through a local company, in Osaka called Mojo Print. They have bilingual staff, so which was important for me because when I first did this, I had a ton of questions about the design. Like I'm not a designer. So the designer that I worked with there, who is a designer, I had some mistakes in my initial submission to them, and he pointed those out to me, and I was able to fix those mistakes. So I'm very thankful that I had this working relationship with this company that, they wanted my product to look good. So they told me the mistakes that I had, and I was able to fix them and resend it back to them. So I think when we first started this publishing company, yeah, of course it's a personal investment. I didn't have any backers. You got to back yourself. So the first time I invested, maybe the first year for the printing was about 600,000 yen, something like that. And so it was about 600 yen per unit, which is pricey. Our books are priced at 2,800 yen. So you got to, take the cost of printing out of that. So it's 2,200 yen plus, distributors will take a cut if you're using them, a huge cut. Bookstores take a cut. Nobody gets 100%. Anyway, so we initially the first year, about 800,000, 900,000 yen. So if you have 1,000,000 yen to spare, or you're willing to invest in yourself 1,000,000 yen, you can probably do it. That being said, we have never been in the red, even from the very first year. We've always been in the black, and we've always made a profit every year.
Okay, thanks, John. Paul, I guess we'll let you be the last question.
Oh, just curious, I know Mojo print very well. You said you gave them something and there were some issues with it. Were you using InDesign? What actually did you work on?
Yeah, so for my software, I wasn't using InDesign because I can't afford InDesign.
Yeah.
So I used a company out of the UK called Serif. And it was a desktop publishing program, which is fine for print work. I think some of the images were below 300 dots per inch. So online it looked fine, but on the printed version it would look blurry. So I had to change and make sure that all the images were at 300 dots per inch, so that when the commercial printers printed it, it would look clear. That and what else? Some of the bleeds. Like when you on the outside, when they print it, you need to have a 3 millimeter bleed. So when you have the settings, you have to set the bleed printing. So I think it's 3 millimeters outside the edge. And some of my color blocks didn't extend into that bleed area. Mm-hmm. So I had to extend it, make sure the bleed was set at 3 millimeters, and make sure the color blocks that I had went over that amount, so that when it printed, the edges would have color. So those were the two things that they told me that I had no idea that I was missing or what I was wrong.
Okay, I'll talk to you more. I have a lot more questions about that. We'll talk later on. Thank you. Very informative as always. Thank you.
Oh, nice to see you, Paul. And thank you, Gretchen, and everybody at Kyoto JAL. Hopefully we can do this again and maybe have some kind of platform to help others get the word out.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you to John. If everyone could unmute your mic and just give him a preliminary thank you. He will be around in the afternoon, I believe, hosting his own breakout room. If you have more questions, you can join him in his room.